Hello, trumpet players. We have a new book coming out. It's a book that I hope in the future will be our most used book. I think it'll be one of the most important books. It's for beginners, but more important than just a beginner book. Now, there's a page in the book that I link the book to my overall practice concept called the Art of Accumulative Practice. And in this video, I want to read that page to you. This is the first time I've done this. I see other people online reading stuff that they wrote, and at first it kind of creeped me out. But the more I dug into this, the more I thought, hey, this is really something I should read to the audience. So we're going to do something a little bit different today than from what we normally do. But let me tell you about this book quickly before I read this page to you. This is the first of the tonalization study books. It's a book that used to be 3 different modules. Back when we were selling modules the way we were selling, we don't do that anymore. We are still selling modules in theory, even though we don't have many up, but not like this. Back then, a module was a book that wasn't big enough to be a physical book. So a small ebook. Now, modules in my definition are parts of a full book. And we just haven't gotten around to making that happen yet. So, we took 3 what used to be modules, short ebooks, and combined them into one book, and we did that because it makes it a little bit easier to use this method, the tonalization study method, with the beginners. It's a great method. Every student I've ever taught with this method has gone to be a very successful player. I say very successful. I'm talking about winning contests and stuff like that. There's something that happens when this is the way you learn the trumpet. Anyway, so with that said, now the name of the book is Trumpet Pioneer Tonalization Studies. And you might have seen the other tonalization studies books. We're going to redo all of them so that they fit with this format. This is the first of that new renovation series. Okay, now this page, once I said this once before, this page that I'm going to read to you links the tonalization studies and specifically this book to the Art of Accumulative Practice. So here we go. The Art of Accumulative Practice. My overall approach to trumpet practice is a philosophy I call the Art of Accumulative Practice. Simply stated, accumulative practice is when you strive for familiarity instead of perfection. Trumpet Pioneer Tonalization Studies is based on that accumulative philosophy. Perfection is unobtainable. Many experts in most fields have lamented that the more they master their subject, the more they understand that they have mastered nothing. Perfection is like the proverbial carrot before the donkey. The carrot moves forward with each step of the donkey. In the same way, perfection remains beyond our reach, moving further and further ahead of us with every improvement we make. When you hear a great performance, you are not hearing perfection. What sounds to you like perfection is flawed in the performer's own ears. The artist does not see himself as having perfected the piece. He always knows that improvements can still be made. No, What you are hearing is that musician's familiarity. Familiarity with what? When you hear a masterful performance, you are hearing the performer's familiarity with his instrument. You are hearing his familiarity with the genre or the style. You are hearing his familiarity with the composition being performed. And you are hearing his familiarity with the technical aspects of the music, which includes the keys. Tonalization studies are designed to build familiarity with the keys. Every time we practice the tonalization studies properly, it adds another layer of familiarity with those keys. This is why I call it the accumulative practice philosophy. You accumulate layers of familiarity with keys and other aspects of music. We begin key familiarity with the expansion studies. Some people skip all or part of the expansion studies thinking that exercises are too easy. And they are. That is the entire point of expansion studies. We want our familiarity to be with high quality performance, not sloppy, error-ridden performance. If the exercises are too easy, then you are not making lots of errors. This is one area where my philosophy differs greatly from the teachers I have heard speak on this subject. They believe it is a waste of your practice time to work on material that you already know. They strive for perfection, not familiarity. Their approach of not practicing what you already know leads to top-heavy trumpet playing, which is prone to toppling. Top-heavy practice leads to crash and burn scenarios. The art of accumulative practice encourages bottom-heavy trumpet playing. We want to build an unshakable foundation to rest all our more advanced skills upon. Trumpet Pioneer Tonalization Studies accomplishes this familiarity. Beginner trumpet students benefit from familiarity far more than advanced students simply because they have none. A beginner is a clean slate. He might have experience listening to music, he might have experience playing another instrument, but his actual hands-on experience begins the day he picks up the instrument the first time. The beginner should practice these expansion studies and tonalization studies with familiarity as their objective. Do all 10 repetitions for each expansion study exercise. Do the tonalization studies once per day for 10 days. The wrong way of thinking is to say that these exercises are too easy. Yes, they are easy, and that is why they work so well. Build your familiarity with the keys by practicing the tonalization studies properly. Strive for familiarity, not perfection. Now, it's almost a radical approach, this striving for familiarity, because you're almost saying that it's okay to make mistakes. You're almost saying that the only way that mistakes matter is that we don't want to build familiarity with sloppy playing. So that's why we practice stuff that's too easy. That's why we play the stuff that we can already play over and over and over again. The students that I've taught that learn that way, instead of this rolling, where everything you've done in the past is now in the past. There's no foundation on that. What we're doing here, when we keep going back to what you already know, keep going back to what you already know, keep going back to what you already know. We do this over and over and over again. In this case, we're talking about scales. And no, I'm not saying that other teachers don't say you should practice your scales every day. Yes, they do say that. Anybody who looks into my tonalization studies will find out that these aren't just scales. And this, look at just me as an example. I invented the tonalization studies in the early 80s, and I have not stopped practicing them. I practiced them today. I practiced earlier this morning. I practiced them today. The ones I did today were a little bit more advanced than the first 20 that I teach my students. But imagine, the point I'm making here is imagine the familiarity that I now have with all 12 keys. Imagine, so 80s, early 80s, now we're early 2020. That's 40 years of regular, consistent shedding through those scales, shedding through the keys, shedding through. So for me, it's not just the major scales. I do all kinds of scales using the tonalization study method. And that's one of my strengths. And it happens to also be the strengths of some of my students because they also do this too. We're not looking, when you're looking at familiarity, you're not looking at perfection. So we're not looking at how fast can you play these exercises. That's not a thing. Familiarity doesn't come from playing fast. People want to creep the metronome up so they can get more technique. That's not a thing. When you look at this stuff from a perspective of familiarity, you get more familiarity from practicing slower, not faster. The slower you practice, the better you are as a trumpet player, because you're increasing familiarity. And a lot of people would say, oh, you don't teach really that much different. Yes, I do, actually. This is not something anyone taught. I watch master classes. I watch jazz teaching videos. I go through all of this stuff. I've read dozens and dozens of trumpet method books. It's like a habit for me, right? I've never heard someone talk about this stuff from this perspective. Everyone's always telling you, make it faster, make it faster, make it faster. Everyone's always trying to get you to be more accurate. Strive for accuracy. All that kind of stuff. Familiarity fixes all that. The only time it doesn't fix all of that is when you practice wrong. If you play too fast. If you strive for speed. So I hope you enjoyed that. This is the first video that we're putting out to sort of quasi-announce the book. I don't advertise the way other people advertise, and it's because of things I learned from the Bible. For example, in the book of James, it says, don't go around telling people what you're going to do tomorrow. You can't even count how many hairs you have on your head or something like that. That's not an exact quote. But you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so shut up. Right? So we don't advertise the way that other people would advertise. Building the big release. Hey, everybody, you got to catch this. Right? We don't work that way. We don't work that way. That's not a Christian way to, in my opinion. I'll let other people do what other people do, right? But in my opinion, that's not, maybe I shouldn't say Christian. It's not biblical. There's a lot of stuff that people do to advertise and market that's not biblical. It's not, and they might be Christians, they might be really good Christians. But that kind of stuff doesn't fall within what I believe as a Christian for biblical reasons. And so the way I approach this right now is to give you information about the book. When the book comes out, the book comes out, okay? I remember one year we tried to coordinate videos with the release of the book, but we don't have power, we don't have the control over when the books get released. It goes through a process and boom, there it is. So yeah, so this book, I'm very excited about it, even though I'm sure it won't be real popular when it first starts. But I think when people see the success that their beginners have with this book, I think teachers will start buying it. And comeback players, I think it's a great book for comeback players. I also think it's a great book for people who think maybe they learned wrong and want to start over. So anyway, if you have any questions about this, the Art of Accumulative Practice, or about the Trumpet Pioneer Tonalization Studies, please feel free to ask it down in the comments, or you can come to our Q&A. We have almost weekly a trumpet Q&A that you can come and ask your questions, and I will answer them live right there. So I invite you to do that. Other than that, God bless you. We're going to make some more of these videos for this book, but not reading like this from the book. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you.